Welcome to our first ever Syracuse Athletics Legends Night. A special welcome to the chair of our trustees, Kathy Walters, and all of our other board members who are joining us here tonight. We are thankful for your commitment, passion, and support of Syracuse University and Syracuse Athletics. The Legends Society is a community of alumni and supporters who recognize the vital role private philanthropic support plays in advancing the mission of Syracuse University Athletics. A month into the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw an opportunity and a need to refocus our development efforts. Our mission, which is to create and foster a culture of academic and athletic excellence, which prepares students, athletes, as leaders in a global society, was put at risk. The need for unrestricted annual operating support has never been greater, and this led to the creation of a high-end annual giving society. The Legends Society commitments directly support the CUSE Athletics Opportunity Fund. This fund helps provide an environment where each student-athlete can reach their full potential, both academically and athletically. Tonight, we celebrate a person who epitomizes what our mission is all about. Dave Bing is the greatest basketball player in Syracuse University history, recognized as one of the top 50 NBA players of all time. As a businessman and a leader, Dave is truly a person of tremendous accomplishment and a true class act. Our host for this evening is Mike Tirico. You all know of Mike's professional accomplishments and his love for Syracuse University. I'm fortunate enough to know Mike as a friend. Our friendship goes back over 2 decades and is one that I cherish to this day. Please welcome my good friend, Mike Tirico.
Thank you for the kind word, John. And hi, everyone. It's great to be with all of you. Great when we can get the Orange family all together in one piece. And nice to be at home, too, so I can drop the mask for a little bit and be able to talk to folks without the mask on. But do, by the way, support the Orange when you wear your mask as we mask up and stay safe and hopefully all gather in person together again real soon. I've got to tell you a quick story, and then we're going to get to Dave Bing. We have some surprise guests here as well to join us. This is going to be a fun night. Great to put on something on the TV or on your computer that we can enjoy and share some laughs and smiles and good conversation with people who are truly special. You know, John mentioned that we've been friends for a couple of decades. If not for John Wildhack and his roots to Central New York, I may not have ended up at ESPN. Who knows where I would have ended up. I was doing local TV at Channel 5 in Syracuse. John was during his ESPN career and has a lake house and great ties to Central New York region. And he came up and because of his love of Syracuse would visit often, if not in a professional and a personal capacity. And I'm sure that John seeing me on the air there and a good word here or there started my relationship 30 years ago with John, with ESPN, and now at NBC. And all along the way, John and Syracuse sports have been a big part of that. So I love bringing together so many folks here tonight. And I have to say, Derek Coleman was around school when I was. He's my third favorite basketball player from the Detroit area who played at Syracuse. Dave Bing is too. He's the number 2 guy on my list. That's because I ended up marrying a point guard who played at Syracuse from the Detroit area, my wife, Debbie. So I've got to tell you that the basketball Syracuse connection in my house is pretty close. But with all due respect to DC and to Dave Bing, I've got to put my wife up there as at least my personal favorite. In any case, it's good humor. But let's get to the important stuff about tonight. Let's get to Dave Bing. I can read all the accolades to you, and I will. And then we'll hear from Dave in just a minute. But I want you to watch this video, which I think best encapsulates everything that Dave Bing was about during his Syracuse days, since then, and still manages to be today. Enjoy this, and then we'll hear from the guest of honor for tonight.
Let me just say this about Dave Bing. If Fred Lewis didn't get him to come to Syracuse, we wouldn't be sitting here today.
This half century of unabated success can be traced to Dave Bing. And how he wound up here defies all logic.
My sophomore and junior years at Syracuse, the team set the then all-time record for consecutive losses.
A record-breaking 27-game losing streak made Syracuse an unappealing destination for most recruits.
Most people say, well, you're a pretty good player. Why would you go to a school that's so feudal?
It was one of the great recruiting coups of all time. Bing's being recruited by everybody in the country, including, John Wooden and UCLA. Fred Lewis, the coach at the time, went down and did a great sales job.
I was recruited coming out of high school by Syracuse in May of 1962. Ernie Davis had just been named the first African-American for the Heisman Trophy. So he and John Mackey were the two guys that recruited me. They weren't the typical jocks, and I didn't want to be that either. I decided because of those two guys that I wanted to go to Syracuse.
In the early years of the NCAA, freshmen did not play on the varsity squad. At Syracuse, with Dave Bing leading the way, the freshman team became the big ticket in town.
Dave Bing was just a sensation on campus. And so huge crowds would show up for the freshman game.
Our freshman team went 18-1. I think in the first game that we played against our varsity team, and we beat the varsity. Students would come to the freshman games and then leave when the varsity played.
When you ask how good was he was the best. And the argument is who's number two.
Well, he was the kind of player you see today. Athletic, jump over the rim. He was like a modern player back in 1962.
Well, that's some of the basketball story of Dave Bing at Syracuse. Went on to be an NBA All-Star, has his place in the Basketball Hall of Fame, retired from the sport in '78, and then started an amazing next chapter of his life, founding a very successful Detroit-based steel company. He's since expanded that enterprise, include manufacturing and construction firms. Honored by the Detroit community for his commitment to social causes, Dave served as the mayor of the city of Detroit during some very difficult times and provided the great stability upon which Detroit's resurgence has happened. Dave's also been actively involved in our alma mater at Syracuse. He's been the chair of our Time Has Come, a minority scholarship campaign, board member of the College of Arts and Sciences, board of visitors, former trustee. He's received Syracuse University's highest alumni award, the George Arentz Pioneer Medal, letter winner of distinction. We could spend another hour with the accolades, but let's just bring him on. I'm also thrilled and honored to call him a friend as well. Please welcome our featured guest for this evening, Dave Bing. Dave, it's so good to see you. How are you doing? What have you been keeping busy with over the last 6 months or so, as we've all been a little bit less mobile than we once were?
Mike, it is so good to see you and see all the success that you've had. And when we look at our roots back at Syracuse, it makes all of us a family. And this last 6 months has been extremely difficult because I'm a guy that's I like to get out and get around. I'm a people person. And the last 6 months has kept me in and kept me away from people. So it's been very frustrating. I started to do something very late in my life, and it has helped me in these last 6 months. And that's trying to learn how to play a little bit of golf. So at least I could get out of the house and go out and play a little bit of golf. Didn't mean that I was going to get to be a good golfer, but it got me out, and I enjoy it now.
You've done that. I've played more golf than ever, and both of us together are still about 1,000 rounds behind that Boeheim guy, who seems to find a way to play all the time and plays quite well. You'll hear a delay between us as we talk tonight. It allows us for the best quality video and audio technology, so we appreciate your patience with that. Dave, take me back to Syracuse. Can you give me just a memory or two of your time up on the Hill?
The greatest memory that I think I have is making my decision to go to Syracuse. You know, I grew up in Washington, D.C. and in the inner city, and from kindergarten through the 12th grade, everybody that I came in contact with looked like me. Teachers, teammates, administrators, schoolmates. And so when I decided to go to Syracuse, it was after a visit. And that visit, I had John Mackey and Ernie Davis were my two guys that took me around and showed me the campus and let me know what to expect. And I really didn't know what to expect because all of a sudden I come from a high school situation and got into a situation where Syracuse had 14,000 undergraduate students. And out of the 14,000, only 100 African-American students, 80 males. DC, as I grew up, had a ratio of 8 girls to 1 guy. So in Syracuse, with 80 guys and 20 girls, it was very, very difficult from a social standpoint. But I decided that I wasn't coming up to Syracuse to try to find a girl. I wanted to go to an institution that could help me from an academic standpoint with my growth and also allow me to play. Now, Syracuse had lost 27 games in a row before I got there. So one thing was pretty evident to me. I was a pretty good player. So losing that many games made me feel, well, hell, I know I'm going to play. So I made the decision to go to Syracuse after that visit. And, it was the best decision that I've made because not only from a basketball standpoint, but from an academic standpoint. And I've met so many good people at Syracuse who today are still some of my best friends.
Dave, there's so much to unpack there. There's the social part of that. There's the sports part of that. From a basketball perspective, now as you look back, how difficult a decision was that to go to a school that didn't have a tradition of winning, knowing from your time in the streets of D.C. and the playgrounds that you were a good player and you really didn't have necessarily a guaranteed spot where you could flourish the way you ended up doing so?
I think, Mike, because Syracuse, when I came, Syracuse had no African-American players on the team. And my freshman year, one other African-American came in with me, Sam Pensill, out of Boys High in Brooklyn, New York. And we became good friends and good teammates. And we used to talk all of the time about what it was like in New York growing up, what it was like in D.C. growing up, and what the challenges were for both of us entering Syracuse. I knew after my freshman year that I was going to be an outstanding player. And the reason for that, as a kid growing up in D.C., I had not traveled much out of D.C. to compete against other players, basketball players. And when I got to Syracuse and I saw guys from all over the country that I competed against, and I just said, I can outplay these guys, so, I'm going to be okay here. The thing is, I wanted to win, and as a freshman, we had an outstanding freshman year, and that freshman team of 1962 was the catapult for Syracuse from that point until today. So my decision was the right decision. It was not a hard decision for me, and I'm glad that I chose Syracuse.
It's the right decision for so many of us. Really, we think about it. Your legacy with Coach Boeheim, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, but there are 7 decades of basketball that trace back with success and with connection from generation to generation back to your decision. And for those of us who spent many, many days and nights and weekends of the winter and the spring celebrating Syracuse basketball success, we have you and Coach Boeheim to thank for a lot of that. You mentioned the other gentleman who came to Syracuse with you at the same time from Boys High School in Brooklyn. Of course, Pearl Washington came from that school as well. So it's a small world, but it's interconnected. Yep. Like you said at the beginning, Dave, it is family. Hey, you detail a lot of the Syracuse story. then the chapters in the NBA, and then your life after basketball, which included front office ownership opportunities in the NBA, Basketball Hall of Fame, founding a company, philanthropic endeavors, mayor of Detroit. You included all of that, finally sat down and wrote a book. Now you're an author. The name of the book is Attacking the Rim. It is Dave Bing's story. You see the cover there. It is coming out soon. Why did you finally sit down and decide to put the Dave Bing amazing story into a book?
You know, I had a guy that was running my foundation, which is a foundation of young inner city boys who come from a single parent home that are not doing well in school. And over the years, especially in Detroit, I've been pretty involved with kids here. I never thought that I never gave the thought that I was mentoring kids. I mean, you just friendship, you try to talk to young kids, you try to give them a little bit of direction, give them a little bit of advice. But I think when I sat down and looked back, this guy by the name of Bob Warfield, who runs the foundation for me, said, you know, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I said, oh, no, I've never thought about that. He says, well, you should, because you got a unique history. High school All-American, college All-American, NBA Hall of Famer, businessman and politics. Now you're doing something that is truly important, and that's helping young men who need so much help, so much advice, so much mentoring. And he says that would be a real good ending for a book that you should write. So I gave it a little bit of thought, and after couple of months of talking about it, we decided to sit down. And it was difficult because you're trying to think and relive a lot of your life and things that you've gone through, things that were important to you, things that you've achieved, things that you failed in. And so with that, I said, okay, let's get it done. So we have now finished the book. It's in print. It's coming out to be released the first week of November. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a story more than anything else of how you can deal with obstacles in life, how you can deal with failure and use that as a trampoline, I think, to succeed. So I've been very fortunate in my life to be mentored also by a lot of guys that I grew up with on the playgrounds in D.C., and all through life. I mean, there's been somebody for me. I was fortunate to have a mother and father in the home, but still there were people on the outside that helped me to develop as a person and as a basketball player. And if not for them, I don't think I would have had nearly the success that I've had. So I never want to forget those people that helped me along the way, and I want to try to do the same thing by giving back to some of these young men in our program.
Well, one of the things I'm very thankful for being a small part of the Syracuse family here is that I've had a chance to read the book. One of the true honors of my professional career, Mayor Bing, since I live in Michigan, I call him Mayor Bing, but Mayor Bing asked me to author the foreword for the book that will come out in November. And to get ready for that, I had a chance to read the book, and it was a couple of the best days of my summer and inspirational as well. Thank you for that honor, and I hope everyone gets a copy of that book coming up in November. We're all looking forward to it. You know, Mayor Bing, we are tonight talking about legends and the Legend Society. Not just in sports, but there are legendary figures in music, in art, in history, in politics. What does a legend mean in your mind?
To me, a legend is someone who does something of significance. For me, a lot of people would say it was basketball. Basketball was a very short period of my life. I mean, I haven't played basketball since I was 34 years old. It's the other things that you do, how you view the world, how you give to the world, how you give back to individuals. And I think I was blessed in the home that I grew up in, that my parents were from the South with just a high school education, and told me how important it was to respect and give back to those that weren't as fortunate as I. And I've always carried that with me. And so my mother and father instilled that in me as a youngster, and I live with that today. So from a legendary standpoint, to me, it's not so much basketball. That's a small part of it. As a business person, I think I did some things and achieved some things that was kind of unheard of when I retired from the sport. You know, I surely never thought about going into politics, but it happened because I thought it was necessary at that point in time, and I was the right person to move into that position to help our city come back. And the greatest thing about this whole legendary career of mine is what I'm doing now, and that's trying to mentor these young boys who people have given up on, and make sure that you can change their lives, that you can change their outlook on their lives, and let them know that regardless how hard things have been for you at this point, you can succeed. If I did it, I came from a tough background, there's no doubt in my mind that if we give you the tools, you will also be able to succeed in life. Then it's incumbent upon you, if you succeed, not to forget where you came from, not to forget about the people that help you succeed, and then you have a responsibility to give back also. That's what legend is all about as far as I'm concerned.
And Dave, that message is, I think, what's inspiring a lot of us to become members of this Legend Society. I mentioned my wife playing basketball at Syracuse as well. She has the athletic connection to SU, in addition to my connection from the Newhouse side, the media side. And both of us were really honored to be a part of that inaugural class of Legend Society members, as the leadership of John Wildhack and the athletic department has really identified the way we can go out and not just attract the best athletes to Syracuse, but the best people and the folks who can make a difference in the world after they take off that uniform. Because think of all the pride we share in what Dave Bing has done, and so many of you who are watching who are former Orange athletes. We take such pride continually as part of this family. There's a young man who I want you to hear from here for a minute, and his name is Justin Knight. He is one of the youngest members of this Legend Society. And Justin has done some incredible things in track and field. We may see him in the Olympics coming up in Tokyo in 2021, but did amazing things at Syracuse, and now is not just keeping those amazing accomplishments to what he does wearing spikes on the track. He's taking it beyond that as one of the youngest members of our Legend Society. So hear from Justin here for a moment, then we'll have a special guest after that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Justin Knight, and thank you guys first and foremost for joining. For me, it's very important to give back to Syracuse Athletics just because my overall experience at the university has been tremendous. From an athletic side of things, the school really helped me become the person that I am today, and I honestly don't think that I would have been able to do that at any other school. I think the fact that Syracuse created a Legend Society is amazing. To give recent graduates, past student athletes, alumni, friends, and fans of Syracuse an opportunity to really leave their mark on the school is just a great thing to do, and it's very inclusive. I think as a former student athlete, this is just something that I've always strived for. I think, as soon as when I signed those papers to become officially a student athlete of Syracuse, I always wanted to leave my mark at the school. I always wanted to forever be tied to Syracuse, and just to be a part of this Legend Society give back and really leave a mark, even aside from what I did athletically, but to kind of help make other people's lives better is just a tremendous feeling, and I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Well, we thank you, Justin, for being a part of this, and thanks for sharing your story, your talents with us, and representing the Orange family going forward. You know, if you just follow football or basketball in season, take a step back. The great recruiting that's going on right now on our campus, women's basketball, another great recruiting year. We know Coach Boeheim and company are crushing it. The football team with Dino Babers has some terrific recruits in the pipeline. Look at what volleyball has done. Volleyball ended up in the top 10 here last week. Cross country, the program that gave us Justin Knight, incredibly successful. Field hockey over the years. Coach Desko in the lacrosse world, they're absolutely crushing it on the recruiting trail this year, including the #1 recruit in the country for the class of 2022 already in the fold. So there are so many great things happening, those future legends. It's a lot to do with the coaches, their passion for sharing the Syracuse story. And that's a story Coach Boeheim has been sharing for many years. Dave, before we bring Jim Boeheim in, what's your favorite Jim Boeheim story that you can share with everybody?
Jim and I became teammates as freshmen, and we became roommates our sophomore year. And we were like guys from two different worlds. You know, I'm a city guy. Jimmy's a small town guy from upstate New York. And we respected each other from the beginning and liked each other. When we roomed together, I mean, I was a neat freak. And so, you know, I kept all my clothes right in the closet. I kept everything on my side of the room neat and organized. And Jim was just the opposite. This is a true story. I can remember after 1 week of sleeping in the same room, that weekend it was time to wash your clothes, and we had to go down in the basement in the dormitory to wash our dirty linen and what have you. And so I said, Jim, are you going to take your sheets off and take them down to wash? And he said, no, I don't need to wash them. I turned them over. And I looked at him and said, we have a problem here. And that is a true story. But, you know, there are a couple of other stories. There's another funny story where in our junior year, we were on campus for Thanksgiving. It was a short 3-day vacation, and so none of us went home. And Jim, because he lived within driving distance of the campus, invited about 3 or 4 of the teammates to go have Thanksgiving dinner at his home. And we didn't know that Jim's dad was a funeral director. And so we get down to his house to have dinner. And as Jim showed us around the house, there were in one room, there were bodies in the house. And me and my other teammates kind of freaked out. And we couldn't wait to get back to campus. And that is also a true story. But, you know, Jim has been a close friend. And he's a guy that a lot of people, when he came to Syracuse, without a scholarship, his freshman year, and I don't think people looked at him to be an outstanding player. But from his sophomore season on, because he worked so hard and he was such a student of the game, he obviously had a nice 3-year career at Syracuse. And, you know, since then, you know, people say the sky's been the limit for him, and he's just done such an amazing job. And as a roommate and a teammate and a friend for over 50 years, I'm I'm so proud of him and happy for all the success that he's had personally, but all the success that he's brought to Syracuse University.
And all those years later, with clean sheets, he's still here. And let's bring in the head basketball coach at Syracuse, and Dave Bing's backcourt mate, roommate, and fellow Hall of Famer. Think about that. In the same freshman room, in the same backcourt, there were two basketball Hall of Famers. Coach Boeheim, great to see you. How are you doing?
I'm great. Obviously, the story about the sheets, I told Dave I turned them over. I didn't even turn them over. You know, I usually try to go 2 or 3 weeks on the same sheets. We were night and day, two, different guys. I tried to learn from him. I learned a little bit, but he was so far ahead of me that, I never caught up. But, the first day I got there, the first day I went to the gym, I was the best player in upstate New York. So, I thought I was pretty good. And I started playing with some of the scholarship players that were there ahead of me. And I knew I can play with these guys. And then Dave came in, and I said, after about 5 minutes, I said, I can't play with that guy. So I'm going to make sure he's on my team. We played half court pickup, and we only had one half court. So there was 20 guys plus football players, 30, sitting there for a game. So you played one game to 11, and then you're done. So I knew right from the first day I was going to be on Dave's team every game. And we won every game, and I got to play a lot. But, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to know who to align yourself with. Same as a coach, you got to have talent on your side.
And you have, in many ways, on and off the court. And speaking of which, I just want to take a second to mention and acknowledge for everyone who's with us tonight the incredible gift of $100,000 that you and your great wife, Julie, gave to the Together Q's campaign this spring to help the spring sports seniors whose season was cut short by COVID-19. And there was this, can they return for another year of eligibility? You and Julie stepped up for a school that you both do so much for, and a community you both do so much for. So kudos to you and Julie for helping out the cause one more time when asked.
Well, that was easy. That was a no-brainer, and we'll do it again, I'm sure, as we move forward. We're going to have issues. Our athletic director, John Wildhack, has made an unbelievable gift of $1 million. So I feel like I'm way behind. I'm going to have to catch up and, be happy to do that. But, it's been so good to be able to coach at Syracuse. The support we've had, a lot of the people that are on this Zoom tonight have given so much to Syracuse. And obviously Dave always has. Mike, you have always given back to your school, always, without any hesitation. And everybody doesn't do that at every school. We're able to raise $700,000 or $800,000 a year here for charity for kids because we have such great support here. And it's one of the reasons why I've felt so fortunate to coach at Syracuse University. Other coaches try to raise that money in their community. They can't do it. We've always been able to do it. And it's from all the people here on this call that have enabled us to do that. And I want to tell everybody this team has worked harder in the 12, 14 weeks we've been here than any team I think we've ever had. It's a really good group. They work well together. Good mix of experience. Guys have gained weight and that really needed to gain weight. And it's been a great practice period. And I'm just so optimistic and hopeful that somehow through the leadership of our chancellor, we're pushing forward. There's going to be hiccups, but I think I completely believe we have to try to move forward because there's no magic solution, I don't think, coming anytime soon. And the rest of the sports world has moved on and are competing. Our players want to play, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to get going here in another couple of months and have a great season.
I think we're all hopeful that that will be the case, especially with what all the kids have done here during this off season. Before we wrap up tonight, we have some of our inaugural Legend Society members who've submitted questions, and I want to give them a couple of minutes to ask and have you guys, two legends, answer those questions. First one is from Michael Bill, class of 1958. He wants to know, what made you choose Syracuse? Dave, you answered this in some ways, but if you could just hit that one more time for Michael, that would be great.
Well, I think I chose Syracuse. It was the last school that I visited, and I had a great visit the weekend that I came up there. They were smart enough to bring me up in the springtime, in May. I had no idea that it snowed so much in Syracuse. I mean, I grew up in D.C., and we got pretty mild winters. Syracuse was just the opposite. But I came on campus that weekend, and all I saw on the quad was girls in shorts and what have you, and everybody seemed to be in a great mood. Everybody enjoyed each other. And as I said, the two guys that were so impressive to me were not only great athletes, football players, but they were student athletes, because both John and Ernie were very good students. And that's what they impressed me with, that you can be a great athlete, but from an academic standpoint, this school has a lot to offer. And so they sold me on the program, and once again, I'm indebted to them, and I thank them for what they've done for me.
I make the argument with people when I relate that story about your recruiting visit, Dave, that might be the most talent ever collected on a recruiting visit, and the most impactful collection of people, because if you know the legacy of Ernie, the legacy of John as well, and Dave, incredible legacies beyond their athletic ability, which was Hall of Fame level and extraordinary. Guys, I want both of you to answer this question, if you don't mind. It's from another inaugural member, David Gellis. The question is about today's athletes, especially in the NBA and NFL, but also at the collegiate level. They've undertaken a high level of involvement in social activism. What did social activism within the NBA look like during your playing career, which were also turbulent times for our nation? And then after Dave Bing answers that, Coach, I'd be curious in your perspective on the conversations that have been happening around our country and on our campus over the last 5 months. Dave, you first.
Well, I'm elated to see so many of our athletes engaged in what's happening in our country right now. For so long, I mean, we are a microcosm of what our country should be, and that's about us having one common goal. And as an athlete, our common goal was to play together and win. And when things didn't go right, we didn't go against each other, pull apart, point fingers, and what have you. There were issues in our country when I was an NBA player, but a lot of the guys back then, we would talk amongst ourselves to try to make sure that some of the things that were happening in our society didn't penetrate into our team. But today, with social media being what it is, I'm so glad to see the NBA and other leagues, other athletes get involved in some of the social issues that we deal with, because, like I say, sports is just a microcosm of life. And we can't wall ourselves off from some of the things that are going on. We have to get engaged. And I'm so proud of our young athletes today that are taking the stands and the positions that they're taking and making their voices heard. And they are making a difference, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, Mike, is there's a number of things, but the fact that all of our players and almost all the athletes at Syracuse are now registered to vote, planning on voting. The NBA, I was shocked that they had only had a 10 or 15% voter registration among their players, and now it's at the 90% level. It's as Dave said, we have to do something about this. We can't leave it up to other people. I've heard too many times people saying, well, I'm not going to vote. It doesn't matter. It matters. We have to vote. We have to find people who are willing and able to make changes that we need in this country. It's fine to protest. It's good to talk about it, but it's time to do something about it. And I think more than I've ever seen before, athletes, players today are committed to try to make change. And I think that's now possible. I think it's been a long time since we've had very much change, very little change, very incremental. And I think now is the time that we can make change. And it's by every athlete and every young person, student athlete, to get involved. And now is the time.
I've seen a lot of the social media from the players on your team getting active in this space. And if there's anyone who can speak to the opportunities that are available through education, it's the college coaches. College coaches have gone into the living room of black men, black young women for years and have seen these athletes turn into some of the great leaders in our society, whether it's through their pro sports or the degrees they get and what they do. So it's something that's really worth listening to the college coaches in this space for sure. Guys, let's wrap up our conversation before we hear from John Wildhack one time with a little bit of humor. There was another question from Mr. Gellis. Dave, what was harder, being the mayor of Detroit or being Jim Boeheim's roommate?
That's a pretty easy answer. I'm sure Jimmy knows it was hard being his roommate. But once again, in all due respect to the long-term relationship that we've had, we got along then, we get along now, and I think he's proud of me and what I've achieved, and I am surely proud of him and how he's handled the success that he's had. So, Jim, I hope to see you pretty soon. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
I hope so. Thank you. And again, Mike, what you've done, and Dave Bing has been the best role model that we've ever produced at Syracuse University, and we've produced a lot. Justin Knight, who we heard from, I've had dinner with him, just an unbelievable individual. But, Dave is the standard for all of us, and we're not going to live up completely to it, but we're going to do everything we can to get there. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me. When I was 18 years old, I walked into the room and saw that Dave was going to be my roommate my sophomore year, and I knew that was huge in a lot of ways, but especially that when I went on campus, they said, well, who's that guy with Dave Bing? So they at least knew who I was. They got to know me a little bit. And it's a little different today. They know me now, but then nobody knew me.
Yeah, we all know you now. The good news is you walk on campus and people want to go, where's Buddy? Forget you. You're yesterday's news. So
I know.
It's been a great time. It's been a great time for all of us. Dave, thank you for sharing so much about your experiences at Syracuse. And I do want to point out and celebrate your incredible work with the Bing Youth Institute. It's a nonprofit organization committed to changing the narrative of young black men in Detroit by providing them with effective and meaningful mentoring relationships, as Dave said. If you want to get in touch and more information about this, check out your screen there. Bob and the guys do an unbelievable job. I can tell you firsthand from living in Michigan, the Bing Youth Institute is something very special, as is Dave, and we appreciate that. Guys, thank you. It's great seeing both of you. It's great connecting with the Orange family, and you are two of the North Stars of our Orange family. So thanks for sharing your time with us. Stay well, stay healthy. Like we said before, mask up, and we'll see you all sooner than later. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.
And as we wrap up, I want to send it back to John Wildhack to wrap up our first of hopefully many, but hopefully we've set a high bar with those two legends, John, for this first Legends Night. Thanks for having us.
Mike, thanks very much. And indeed, we did set a very high bar. And I want to thank you for moderating tonight and being our host, and Coach Boeheim for joining us. And Dave Bing thank you for sharing your life story, your lessons, and your wisdom with all of us. You truly are a legend in every sense of the word. And you told me the book would, quote, be a hell of a book. And I can't wait to read it because I'm sure it is. I'd also like to thank Justin Knight for his comments. I've gotten to know Justin when he was a student athlete here, and our friendship has grown since his graduation two and a half years ago. He's a wonderful young person, and again, he epitomizes, as Dave did, what we want our student athletes to become here at Syracuse. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite all of you to join the Legend Society and be a part of this premier network of philanthropists. During the pandemic, our athletic staff has worked extraordinarily hard to manage the health and safety of our student athletes. We've done so while significantly reducing our costs. It's clear that we need a steady and reliable stream of unrestricted private support. This will allow us the flexibility to address future challenges and pursue opportunities to uphold our mission. And while the pandemic has and will continue to have financial implications for Syracuse University Athletics, the need to increase our unrestricted annual support is not tied solely to COVID-19. The face of college athletics is ever-changing. ACC schools have the most mature and robust athletic development programs in the country. We need to overcome this disparity with schools that we compete and recruit against every single day for coaches, assistant coaches, student athletes, and staff. The funds generated by the Legend Society will directly impact our ability to attract, train, and develop world-class student athletes, coaches, and staff. We have established two levels of the Legend Society. Both come with a 5-year commitment. The orange level are those that make an annual commitment of $25,000, equating to a 5-year commitment of $125,000. The blue level requires an annual commitment of $10,000, equating to a 5-year commitment of $50,000. At this time, our goal is to have 100 members of the Legend Society in our inaugural year. As we sit here tonight, we have 28 members, and that's only with a soft launch. So we thank those of you who have signed up and are truly pioneers. And I'd like to take a moment to let you hear from one of our inaugural members and the last three-sport All-American at Syracuse University, Cliff Ensley, and why Cliff joined the Legend Society.
Hi, I'm Cliff Ensley, and this is my wife, Sue. Why did Sue and I join the Legend Society? Pretty simple. To give back to the university and athletic department, which had such a profound effect on my life. Sue and I have tried to make SU a better experience for our current student athletes. The Legend Society will do for the athletic department what the Hill Society does for the university. It will give our gifted AD, John Wildhack, the current operational dollars needed to help out student athletes and the coaches compete in the ACC during these dire times in our country. We must step up. If not us, who? If not now, when? Orange forever.
Thank you, Cliff, and thank you, Sue. Over the course of the next few weeks, our staff will follow up with many of you and invite you to join the Legend Society. All of you on tonight's call will receive a complimentary signed copy of Dave's book in December. Tonight's Legends Night is an example of the kind of exclusive opportunities that will be part of membership to the Legend Society. In addition to events like this, the Legend Society members will also receive top priority and allocation of Orange Club benefits. For our Legend Society members, Our next Legends Night this winter will feature Tom Coughlin, soon to be Super Bowl champion coach twice and soon to be an NFL Hall of Famer. It'll be moderated by Sean McDonough, class of 1984. We're working with them to find a date, and we've targeted December. Together, we can continue the legacy of achievement that defines Syracuse athletics. Your support directly benefits the young men and women who represent our university. Thank you, Dave, for an amazing, amazing night. And to all of you, stay healthy, stay happy, and go Orange. Thank you.